event. You mentioned the inaugural address, Bret, and one of the things that jumped out at me was the president continued a theme that we heard from him during the campaign, which is how he believes that this is a land where too few are enjoying the privileges of success, and that something needs to be done to equalize that situation. At least 3 times by my count he mentioned that, saying the patriots of 1776 did not fight to replace the tyranny of a king with the privileges of a few, saying we understand our country cannot succeed when a shrinking few do very well and a growing many barely make it, and saying we do not believe in this country freedom is reserved for the lucky or happiness for the few. Brit Hume and Chris Wallace are still with us. Your thoughts on that, Brit?
Well, it's interesting. If you think about the 2 issues that dominated his election year and the midterm election that followed, his election was dominated, I think, and determined, his original election, by the economy, which was in terrible straits when he took office. And what did he say about the economy today? He said a recovery has begun. This is 4 years down the road. In fact, that recovery of which he speaks began only months after he took office, in June of 2009. And it has been, by historic standards, a very lame recovery since then, with only modest and
the same unemployment
growth.
rate today as when he first took office, 7.8%.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh.
So what did he say in the speech today that said that I have a plan or I have new ideas for creating a more robust recovery? Practically nothing. Now, turn to the 2010 midterm, in which his party lost all those seats. And that was driven in considerable measure by the growth of the deficit and the national debt and a tremendous anxiety in the country about spending. So we do get some words about him. He says we need to make the hard choices to reduce the cost of health care and the size of our deficit. And the next word, as you probably remember, was but. And after the but, he gets into about we reject this choice between caring for a generation that built this country and investing in the generation that will build its future. And he talked about Medicare, as Bret pointed out, Medicaid, Social Security, any intention that you might have thought he had to shrink those programs to a size that will allow them to continue to thrive or survive, unmentioned here. And so, you know, it's a familiar rhetorical device in speeches of this kind, where you state a principle which is approved by the other side and then make a turn away from it, or you state a principle which everybody accepts, and then the next thing you know, you swept in your whole agenda under that rubric. He tried a lot of both things today, but I think those things stuck out.
Chris Wallace. I thought that if you were a supporter of Barack Obama, and particularly a liberal supporter of Barack Obama, you were very pleased by this speech. It seemed to me he said, I made some promises and commitments in this campaign, and I intend to keep them and to redeem them. I thought it was a real call to arms for a liberal agenda. He talked about community and the idea that we can't do these things individually, whether it was from the economy to infrastructure to helping people in need after a hurricane. We need to do it as a community. He talked again about the fact that we need to see the benefits of the economy not just go to the few but to the middle class. He defended entitlement, defended alternative energy. He reached out to women and to gays, made it clear that immigration reform was going to be a big part of his second-term agenda, voting rights, gun control. It just seemed to me that this was a president in a very clear and not at all compromising way, staking out a claim saying, I campaigned on these issues. Elections have consequences. I intend to keep my promises. I don't think he reached out to the other side at all. He said we can't solve everything. We've got to try to act. And then he called on the public not so much for sort of support in the country, but for support for his agenda. And I think you certainly get that sense from the fact that he's turned his campaign organization into an issue advocacy group, organizing for action. This is a president who meant what he said in the campaign, and he intends to keep those promises.
Do you think, to Brit's point and your point, that this is the message of a firewall president, someone who's protecting the progressive agenda, someone who is saying, you're not going to get past me, any changes to unravel a liberal agenda of the past 50 years, that essentially he's not transformational in essence, but he's saying you're not going to do things that would change those things of the past, the liberal...
I think that's exactly what it was. This was a defense when it comes to these programs, which now, if you take them all together and add them up, you're way past 50% of annual federal government spending. And basically he's saying, these are walled off. Don't mess with these. You can't touch these.
And just to interject on that, I mean, the Washington Post had an editorial. The Washington Post, not known for its conservative leanings, had an editorial on January 19th saying, on its current path, the government won't be able to sustain the kind of investment the president favors because in just a few years, its entire budget will be swallowed by entitlement spending.
You maybe find it in the speech, but I didn't hear it, and I certainly don't think there was much emphasis on deficit reduction, on balancing the budget. I mean, and this is the one issue where I would disagree with you, Bret. I don't know that there is a liberal agenda. We've had Reagan, we've had the two Bushes, an awful lot of that's been undone over the last half century, and I think this is a president not only who's saying, I'm going to protect the liberal aspects of our government and entitlements. I think he's saying, I'm going to expand it. I'm going to take the fight and press these issues. I thought it was a real call to arms for the liberal agenda, not protecting it, but expanding.
I think you're right. I think Bret's right. I think it's both. I mean, he talked about, furtherance of gay rights. That's a very important to the left.
As a civil rights issue, he framed it.
Exactly. He talked about, global climate change and how we're going to attack that. And so immigration reform. Well, that's an issue.
By the way, there's Jay-Z and Beyonce, and I think behind him, Congressman Paul Ryan in one shot. That's a unique shot. Go ahead.
Unusual combination. Well, she looks stunning, doesn't she?
She looks fantastic.
Watch out, Brent Musburger got in trouble for that, my friend.
Oh,
okay, moving on with the inaugural address.
Move on quickly here.
Moving on.
Move on quickly.
She's an incredibly beautiful woman, and there's nothing wrong with pointing it out.
Thank you,
Megyn.
Thank you. Brent Musburger will thank you as well.
Well, I defended him when he said it too.
Good for you.
As did the actual beauty queen. Who
I thought she sang very well, didn't you?
She sure did. You said Kelly Clarkson was a little pitchy.
How did we get so far afield?
Dog.
We were in such a great place. Go ahead, Bret.
I was just saying that I think both of you have points well taken. He's defending the existing pillars, really, in the eyes of the Democrats and liberals of the American social progress and American society. And he's also advancing some items that are of newer vintage and which are not well established.
But, they talked. David Plouffe on Fox News Sunday yesterday talked about seeking common ground. I thought it was common ground very much on his terms. Right. One can say he's the president. He got elected. He's got the mandate. But he wasn't talking about I'm going to meet the Republicans halfway.